For you as a filmmaker, did this film represent any challenges that you hadn't faced in your previous movies? And
Yeah,
were
ballet,
they
shooting
challenging?
ballet.
How difficult is that? I mean, is it like shooting if you were to shoot an action sequence in a big blockbuster or something like that, or is it a bit more intricate than that?
Well, up to a point, it's just that the dancer has only. They have a limitation of physical stamina. I mean, Sergei Polunin is extraordinary. He could keep dancing. Oleg is a great dancer, but I definitely had to be sensitive to his stamina. And I think that's the case with most dancers. They can't keep dancing for the camera in a way that an actor can keep acting, because it's just simply the sheer demand on their bodies is something that is, is high. Intense. It's intense.
How important into the process was it to cast a ballet dancer that could act rather than the opposite way around? Did that kind of alleviate a bit of pressure off of you in terms of the filmmaking?
It certainly took the pressure off. If I had had a dancer who might have been great up here, but once they move, the world knows they're not a dancer, a ballet dancer particularly. And I just felt, because I knew I would have time restrictions, that I wanted to be in a room filming the face and that can also film the same body and not have to worry that I've got to cut to a double. And I held to that. There was pressures on me at times to think about actors. I mean, I wanted an unknown, which didn't help from the finance point of view because people want names. But I looked at a number of dancers and identified Oleg reasonably early on in the process. We saw many dancers in the Russian-speaking world. And then finally we got it down to about 4 or 5 for sort of more sophisticated screen tests. And he emerged quite quickly. I felt that he was very responsive to my direction, that he sort of got these qualities of Nureyev, flirtatious, arrogant, vulnerable, mischievous, and I felt I had a hunch. I didn't know I'd be right, but I believe I am now. I believe I was right. He was fantastic.
I just spoke to your screenwriter, and he was saying about this great collaboration that you guys had from the outset. I mean, was that good to have that platform going into the project that you had?
Yeah, I've worked with David. I've worked for him as an actor and him directing, and I've been in adaptations that he's done of classic plays. And so I had a friendship and a working relationship. I just think David can write with wit and compassion very provocative confrontational characters. Famously in Pravda, the play about the newspaper magnate, supposedly based on Rudolf Nureyev, Anthony Hopkins played this larger-than-life, very confrontational, antagonistic spirit. And I just think David has a wonderful insight into those kind of provocative people who have what I call jagged edges. They're not necessarily always, they don't tick the box of likable. And lots of distributors and studio people always want likability. Who do we root for? And I slightly take the opposite position. I want to be interested in some. I don't necessarily want to root for them. I just want to find them engaging and complex and full of ambiguities and contradictions. And that's what Nureyev is.
Just finally, I mean, everyone's probably asking you about Bond and you can't talk about it, I'm sure, but I wondered, I know you were the voice of Alfred in the Lego Batman movies. I mean, if that opportunity came up in the latest live-action movie, would that be something that would interest you, to play Alfred?
Alfred, yes, I'd love to be Alfred. A lot of good people have gone before me, so I'd be happy to follow in their footsteps.
I'd love to see you do that.
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay, go on. We put that out there. Alfred.
Thank you so much. Pleasure. Tell me about the genesis of you getting involved with the film and what it was about this character that made you want to get involved.
Что для меня характер Нуреева?
Пианист, как получилось, что вы в этом фильме приняли участие?
Я уже во многих интервью говорил, что я получил сообщение, подумал, что это спам и удалил его.
As I said in many interviews, I actually received a message. I thought it was spam and deleted it.
Да, это было первое мое такое, можно сказать, роман с этим фильмом. Роман с этим фильмом, да, как бы так.
So that was my basically first affair with this film.
И то есть и потом все поехало, закрутилось, но и вот к чему привело.
And then it all started spinning, and here I am now.
What was it like working with Ralph Fiennes, both as an actor and as a director? Because he's had such an amazing career. It must have been a great kind of tool for you to work with.
Это было, ну, во-первых, это очень замечательно, потому что я мечтал сыграть, конечно же, да, но я не знал, что я сыграю с Рейфом.
It was absolutely amazing. Of course, I dreamt about acting, but I never dreamt of acting with Ralph.
И я не знал, что моим учителем актерского мастерства будет тоже Рейф, и что директор будет тоже Рейф.
And I never suspected that my basically acting teacher would be Ralph and my director as well.
Да, и, конечно, это было замечательно. То есть это человек, с кого нужно брать пример.
And it was absolutely brilliant. He's just a person you should take example from.
In terms of challenges, I mean, what was the biggest challenge? Was it kind of the physical stuff, or was it more kind of the emotional stuff that was more challenging for you?
Самые большие сложности вызовы физические или эмоциональные больше?
Когда были съемки танца физические, когда были съемки актерства эмоционально.
Well, it was physical when we shot the dancing, and it was emotional when it was acting.
Yeah.
And in terms of sort of modern audiences who maybe, young audiences, I mean, are you hopeful that they go and see the film and that they can learn some valuable lessons from the movie?
Надеюсь, что молодежь, так сказать, посмотрит фильм и какие-то уроки полезные извлечет.
Я тоже надеюсь, что этот фильм поменяет мышление людей и на искусство, и на Нуриева, и на время, которое мы показали.
Well, I hope this film will change how people think and see the art, Nureyev, and the time that we showed in the film.
Obviously, you use a kind of non-linear storytelling device in this. I mean, when you were planning the film, was that something that you purposely wanted to do, or did it just come kind of through the genesis?
There are three different parts of his life that are very interesting. When he was a child, when he was a student, and then when he defected and appeared at the opera in Paris and became the most famous dancer in the world. And we wanted to be as close to him as we possibly could when he stepped onto that stage. And we felt we could only really do that properly if you knew a lot about his childhood and you'd actually lived through the whole thing that he lived through. And that's what we try to do by jumbling up the three things. Also, audiences, just getting much more sophisticated. They don't want all that linear plod storytelling, and I think they like the challenge of working out what's going on sometimes.
Yeah, and I guess with that as well, for you as a writer, does that present different challenges doing it that way, or is it kind of very similar?
Yeah, because you've got to have something that's driving each of the three stories, and you mustn't piss the audience off. I don't want the audience to go, oh, come on, I don't know where I am and I don't know what's going on. You want them to know exactly what's going on, just to know why they're in one bit rather than another. So that you get by trial and error, and maybe we moved it around a bit in the editing room and we worked on it to try and make it as clear as we possibly could, but also so that you didn't know where the story was going next.
What was it like working with Ralph as a collaborator? Because as a director, he's picked very unique, very kind of different things to what he would do as an actor, I guess. He's very particular about what he picks as a director. What was it like working with him and kind of bringing the story to life?
He's very, very open. He's very collaborative. I've worked with him 5 or 6 times. I've directed him as an actor, and so I know how much he loves good writing. But he also loves good cinematography, he loves good design, he loves good costume, and he trusts the people he works with, and he invites you all the time to make suggestions. And he's not possessive about the film, he really lets you contribute as much as you want to, and that's the mark of a great director.
Tell me what it was about this particular character and this man and his story that kind of spoke to you as a producer and why you wanted to get involved.
Well, I actually... because he's extraordinary personality. I mean, he was actually one of sort of the great first celebrities in a sense of the 20th century, and as an artist and as a ballet dancer. He was sort of the first. I was actually lucky. I'd met him a couple of times. I saw him dance as a child, and I think his story is just one of those kind of great modern tales of somebody coming to the West. A Cold War story, coming here and actually being able to become who he actually became. He would never have been able to be who he ended up being in the West if he'd stayed in Russia.
Yeah. Ralph, I beg your pardon. I mean, he's an amazing actor, done so many amazing bits of work. As a director, he's quite particular about which stories he wants to tell, and very unique stories in a way. I mean, what was it that kind of spurred his interest in this one?
I think it was really the story of a young artist, the portrait of a young artist. I think that's what he really sort of identifies with, and that I think it spoke to him. He had a real empathy for it.
You've got a great cast here. I mean, how delighted were you to get a slightly unknown cast, but such an amazing and very, very rich cast as well.
Yeah, just great casting directors, and Rafe being as sort of vigilant and devoted as he is to the process and finding those right people. Yeah.
How delighted were you when you saw the finished product? Because it's quite a delight to watch and quite a joy.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. It's a real celebration of a lot of wonderful of the arts, really, of dance, of music, of painting, sculpture. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh? Hey You Guys. Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey